So when we look at it, we got approximately 700,000 police officers. I say we can cut them in half and just take the most elite out of the 700,000 and do away with all the shaft, right? Get rid of them and use those for serious purposes only. I think it's time that we start telling the people, the citizens, that you're on your own.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to another edition of IDRYB Live. I am Lutch, your host, and today we are going to be discussing what should the role of police be in society. For those who may not be familiar, who the hell are you?
So for those who don't know me, my channel is Real Nathan Daly. My name is Nathan Daly, of course, and I have a YouTube channel. As a 13-year law enforcement veteran, recently retired, you guys decided to start a channel to help bring some insight, some transparency to this profession. This is a very complicated profession. As you know, we're in the news. There's a lot going on when it comes to police relationships in regards to the nation and the citizens. And so my job is just to bring some insight, some behind the scenes knowledge. I've worked extensively throughout law enforcement, different areas, different investigative I'd say positions. And, I have a lot to offer you guys on my channel. I speak a lot about these issues. I break them down. I break down and do body camera reviews. And I give people insight on police procedures to have a better understanding. And overall, the objective is to use my channel to rebuild the bridge that was damaged a long time ago. And for the most part, that's pretty much it, man. I have a lot to share, so I'm excited about this topic.
I don't really have a clear answer for this. The question being, what should be the role, or I guess I've rephrased it here, but what role should police play in society? When I'm first thinking about it, I want the police to be on the side of the citizenry. And I think the attempt has been there to have it work out like that. But because of the nature of the laws and a lot of things that we can get into, that's not always how it plays out. And the job, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, but the job of a police officer is not to protect and serve specifically, but rather to enforce the law.
Yeah, I think you're the first person I've ever heard say that. I say it all the time. And again, my objective is to bring a lot of truth into this space. The problem with law enforcement is they have a very horrible PR game. The marketing over the last 30, 40 years has been ridiculous. It's not accurate. And it provides a false sense of, I guess you say, reality. The whole idea of policing has been romanticized in this country. And so now when people are seeing real police officers do the job, there's kind of like, hold on, what? This doesn't look like what you've been indoctrinating me on and conditioning me to believe. And so there lies the problem. There is a huge misconception. Officers are not as good as people think they are as far as training wise, right? Not necessarily good as people per se, but as training, we're just not that great at the job. It's a very difficult job. The reality is you have a lot of officers that are afraid. Fear is a natural human response. And with that comes a lot of issues. And so I tell people all the time, which I'm glad you said that before you can protect and serve is what they were selling people. Police are here to protect and serve. You have to enforce the laws, right? So there is no protecting and serving without law enforcement. That is our primary duty, not to protect, obviously. And at the same time, the Constitution, well, not the Constitution, but the Supreme Court also stated that police officers are not here for your protection, right? That's not our priority obligation to you, is to protect you. You're in charge and responsible for your own safety. And so when people are hearing that, they are completely, they're shook, they're turned upside down. They have this aha moment. And they're confused because that's what they've been sold. As you know, in this country, we are very good at propaganda. And so, they've made the people believe that is our responsibility, and it's not. Our job, first and foremost, is to enforce the law. So you're absolutely correct.
I think I struggle with the need for law enforcement, which is I understand, a fairly outlandish thing to say, but bear with me for a second. I think ultimately the police do very little enforcement of the law. I think ultimately they're showing up afterwards when things happen. Everything from theft. I mean, rarely, I think, and obviously, Nathan, you're the expert, so feel free to correct me at any point, but I don't think a lot of robberies are stopped mid-robbery by police. And, that's a huge generalization. I'm not going to say that's every instance, but at the same time, how much enforcement of the law is actually happening, even though that's the primary objective of the police force, is my question.
That's actually a great question. And I agree with you. Policing, now I will say this is what I have to push back on.
Please.
Policing is absolutely needed. It's absolutely needed. How we use the police needs to change, right? I think Ryan, I think that's what we're going to agree on. One of the biggest problems with law enforcement is that we're being used excessively in areas that are not necessary. I think a lot of times on my channel, I like to tell people that I'm creating a reform package that's actually legit, that'll actually work. And one of those things is reducing the need for officers. I believe personally that over 70% of the 911 calls, or the types of 911 calls that come out, officers should not be responding to. And again, when we look at the situation in Buffalo, New York, we look at the situation now recently in Texas. We had a situation in Milwaukee, California, these mass shootings, and specifically Buffalo. The police officers were present, a whole lot of them, and they didn't do their job. And so, one would argue that this is absolutely 100% what we need the police for that moment right there.
Exactly.
Not the stop sign, right? Not the speeding ticket. If you were ever to be trained to be a police officer, it's for that scenario right there. And I believe that's where we need to start shifting law enforcement. In situations where you have armed gunmen, armed gunwomen, got to be fair. Just people who
or others.
or others. We don't discriminate here. Anybody who wants to create or push any type of act of violence on anybody, regardless of their religion, creed, race, it doesn't matter. Human life, right? A human life.
So sorry to interrupt your podcast experience. I just want to remind you, if you're enjoying what you're watching, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And if you really love it, there's some support links in the description. I would love if you can help out the channel. And back to the show.
Anyone who's threatening a human life needs to be met with reasonable force in order to stop them from hurting more people. And so the problem is, I always say this, since I trained some officers, and I say, everybody wants to be a cop until it's time to be a cop, right? It's all fun and games until someone's shooting at you, right? It's easy to do this job when everybody complies. It's when the person doesn't comply is when it's time for you to do your job. Now, I can pull you over and say, hey, can you sign this ticket? You're like, all right. Those who cooperate, law-abiding citizens, are not the problem. It's the people who look at you and say, I'm not going to jail. Sir, you're under arrest. Okay, make me, right? That's when the job really starts. So what you see is people, on average, 80% of the time, police officers are not being challenged on their job. And so when someone decides to challenge you, I still remember the first day someone looked at me and said, I'm not going to jail. You're gonna have to earn this. This is what he told me. I'll never forget those words. I was like, well, damn, okay. How are we doing this? And that's the reality. And that's when the job sets in, right? When someone is trying to take your life as an officer and you're trying to put them in custody because they took someone else's life, that's when the job begins, and I've had people try to take my life a few times. And the last time is why I ended up having to retire. And so when the job gets tough, the citizens are looking for officers to step up. And so if you can't step up, then this is not the job for you. And I think a lot of officers have gotten too comfortable being comfortable. And there's no and there lies the problem, right? So we do need officers, because without officers, you're going to have criminals who are going to act with impunity. Right. So you absolutely need them. We just need to utilize them properly, put them in the right areas, train them better. Less is more when it comes to policing, right?
Absolutely.
So,
any part of the government.
Correct. Any form of government. So when we look at it, we got approximately 700,000 police officers. I say we can cut them in half and just take the most elite out of the 700,000 and do away with all the shaft, right? Get rid of them.
Interesting.
And use those for serious purposes only. I think it's time that we start telling the people, the citizens, that you're on your own, right? You're on your own. You are responsible for your own safety. If we can get there in time to stop it, if we can get there in time to prevent it, then so be it. But until then, you got about 5 minutes to hold your own until we show up. And I think that changes the mentality of the citizens to start looking at their safety differently, right? This country is no different than any other country overseas in regards to your safety. Anything can happen. That's why people are they're so discombobulated with all these mass shootings. If they really knew that we have about almost between 500 to 600 a year of these things, you know, the media picks and chooses which one they're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But these things happen all the time, and the police aren't there to stop it. You know, we come after the fact. The other reason why we need the police is because someone is doing the investigating. Someone still has to do the apprehension, right? So the normal citizen doesn't have the tools or the skill set to investigate and actually locate, because even though the crime was committed, someone does have to go and find them. So yeah, the whole idea is stopping the bleedings, right? So if you have a guy like, say, this guy in Buffalo, or the guy in Texas, if they're just free to walk away, well, then they're gonna do the act again. Okay, I'm gonna pick another grocery store where there's minorities who are unarmed. I'm gonna pick another school where there's minorities that are unarmed, or I'll pick a school where there's white children, right? Asian children. Then people are going to say, well, who's going to stop them? You know, who's going to stop these people? So we still need it, though. I do agree with you. I think we just need to remarket what it means to be police in this country, and then be honest with the citizens in reference to what they can expect. Right now, the expectations are unrealistic. And I think, to your point, Ryan, you bring up a valid point, and I think it just comes down to remarketing this whole entire profession, to be honest, in my personal opinion.